Dinner in Hell Band! Oh, listen to him, man. Killing it.
Dinner in Hell audience.
Oh, back in the swing of it. We got everything cleared up around here.
Give it to us real good for not one of you showed up last time.
Well, they did. They got turned away because we couldn't get the Teamsters to come to work on Labor Day.
When I say three, really give it to us. 1, 2, 3, go. Nice. My freaking hair blew back through the glass window. Woo! I'm gonna steal BT's line in a second.
Welcome back for another exciting edition of the Dinner in Hell podcast, the show where two amateur historians talk about the atrocious underbelly of history. I am one of your co-hosts, Brad the Impaler, and with me, as always, the esteemed Ronald Maiden.
It's Bronson. Fucking showed you my birth certificate. You saw it. That's on my wall on the frame.
I know, man.
In my den.
I know. I'm sorry. Well,
God darn it.
We're in the middle of a series here, aren't we, Ron?
We're in the middle of a series, and at the same time, our world is in the middle of a aquatic hurricane freaking mess of a tropical storm. This is September of 2017 is when we're taping this.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, Houston's soaking wet. Miami, Florida is beat up.
Yeah, Harvey and Irma rolling through.
Yet, I just wanted to point out that according to our feedback we get from our team, we had 8 plays in the city of Houston during the tropical storm that devastated Houston. So in my fantasy, there was like 8 people all on like a roof of a house, all listening to our show together until like the helicopter came to like pick them up and rescue them. So it's like, you guys all gotta listen to this. Yeah, what's it again? Dinner in Hell. It's called Dinner in Hell. It's a podcast. Sounds awesome.
A special Dinner in Hell. Fist in the air.
Friggin' helicopter comes in to scoop them up with like the net, and they're like, just fucking hold it a second, they're almost through.
Yeah, give me
the music hasn't faded in yet.
Give me 10 more minutes.
So thanks for listening, Houston, during your time of your hectic time.
Yeah, no, hope everything's okay for you.
Friggin' also, just gonna say, we did. Whenever I see like a new city that I haven't heard of, I'll look it up. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And we got plays in Mechanicsville, Virginia. Mechanicsville, Virginia. Thanks for listening. These guys have the most beautiful windmill downtown. It's been there since like Civil War times.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's now it has a bank attached to it. It's crazy. It's part of their local. It's skyline.
That's charming.
According to their last census, 90% white, okay?
Oh,
and
really?
0.01% Pacific Islander. Like, you got to step it up with the Pacific Islanders.
Yeah, those are rookie numbers.
Pacific Islanders, if you're listening, Mechanicsville, Virginia wants you to move there. They want more Pacific Islanders to enrich their culture there.
Yeah, I bet you there has never been a single luau in Mechanicsville.
Not one face tattoo that is like tribal, at least.
Well, there's probably some tribal face tattoos. But.
Should I mention the freaking famous people? The talent hotbed?
Oh, hell yeah. Who is Mechanicsville's proudest?
Mechanicsville's a freaking entertainment hotbed. Okay? We're talking Lamb of God members.
No, so like the LA of the mid-Atlantic coast.
They're the LA of Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
No. Motion City soundtrack.
All right.
And freaking Jason Mraz.
What's happening?
Listen, Mechanicsville.
What's in the water down there?
They have all that entertainment, and they decided to listen to us over all that.
Yeah.
So thank you for tuning in.
Thank you. So where were we, Ron?
Well, we are continuing our Volume 2, our Nazi series, Volume 2, The Holocaust. Today is Part 2 of a 3-part series.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 1, we covered how the Nazis started to legally screw the Jewish people out of like their businesses, all their anything of wealth, their jewelry, they were totally screwed. And now, you want to paraphrase it better?
No, that's pretty good.
Because I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Okay,
yeah.
I don't want to cross into what we're about to talk about, but we talked about Kristallnacht.
Yeah,
that's another thing where they went by and destroyed all these Jewish. These are like the brown shirt party.
Yeah,
that worked for Hitler. They supported Hitler.
They're his private army.
Yeah, like not cops, not army, different brown shirts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. These guys went out one night and they told the cops, just chill, don't come out, stay inside, let us handle this. And they busted up all these Jewish businesses, Polish, whatever, probably, but mainly Jewish.
Yeah.
And like the German businesses were like untouched and like perfect.
Yes.
And physically intimidated. They were forced to give up their jewelry, all their jewelry, Jewish people. And they were also charged with like ruining Germany.
Yeah, it was they made their fault and they fined them. They're like, here's a fine. Like who's supposed to pay this? Like all Jews.
Yeah, all you guys. So start grabbing all your jewelry, bring it up here to the city hall, local library, your local,
Mm-hmm.
So now we are going to get into part 2, and this is the shit. This is
where I'd say the real shit.
This is the action. This is going to be the action episode, like the actual fucking Holocaust where people die. And then next episode when we come back is going to be recapping like what's discovered, the aftermath that's left behind.
Yeah, this was where some real large scale death begins. I mean, in the first episode during Kristallnacht, 100 Jewish people were murdered in the streets in that November 10th night.
In the streets.
Yeah, but this is where it starts to become systematic, and the third episode is the full realization of that systematic design into like legitimate industrial level, genocide like that's never occurred before or since.
We're going to cover people boarding trains and riding the train all the way to the camp and the end game for the passenger. Sucks. Yeah. But it's dinner in hell and we're going to discuss it like freaking champions.
Yeah, we'll
try to freaking
we'll see how it goes.
So, like, we definitely don't want to bum you out.
The crowd seems excited about it anyway. Can you let us hear it again?
Give it to us.
Yeah.
Dude, the place is starting to shake.
Yeah, we gotta calm it down. Okay, we're trying to do an episode here. Okay, thank you.
So here we are, part 2. We just left off with what? Kristallnacht?
Yeah.
Kristallnacht.
Yep.
Your German's better than mine. Your German
Kristallnacht.
Yeah, you get into it.
I used to be able to kind of speak German.
I was raised by wolves, so I never really learned proper English speak.
These things happen.
So where we leave off?
Well,
in one sentence.
Where we're at now is with... in terms of the larger geopolitical conflict, Hitler and the Nazi regime have annexed the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia. They've started expanding. They've gained territory, but World War II has not started at this point, though it is right around the corner.
Explain, if we're looking at the map of Europe, explain exactly what is Sudetenland. What does that cover?
The Sudetenland is sort of northwest Czechoslovakia, around which, they claimed they were historically German areas, and they were filled with mostly German people anyway, so shouldn't they really be a part of our country? And the early policies in dealing with Adolf Hitler was called appeasement. And that's like, let him have these little things because then we'll keep him pacified and he won't become aggressive.
They're kind of like selling out instead of like helping, allying with these nations. They're just kind of like saying they're like punking out.
Yeah, they're like Czechoslovakia's like, hey everybody, can you like please help us because like we don't want to do this and he's gonna attack us. And then they're like, yeah, you better just cough it up because like we don't want them, starting a war, so just give them that.
Yeah, maybe if he gets Poland and like, maybe he'll in like Hungary. Does he ever get over to Hungary?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like, let's just give him Poland and Hungary, and maybe he'll just be cool with that amount.
Yeah, more or less. That's kind of the early attitude towards it, because everybody in Europe is still trying to, emotionally process how horrifying World War I was. That was only 20 years ago. Like, everybody who was involved in this, like, remembered that shit or fought in it.
Yeah.
Like, including Adolf Hitler and Winston Churchill. They were all fighting.
Yeah.
So, they're really reluctant to do it again. Even though, I mean, as we all know, they didn't have a choice eventually. So they were really, really trying not to let that happen. But you can kind of understand it from that perspective. Knowing what we know, you can't justify it, but you can kind of understand it,
So he invades Poland in 1939.
Yes. Yep, he does. But before that, what's come to be known as the final solution to the Jewish question, which is their attempted extermination of all of the European Jewish people.
Right.
That was absolutely not, codified Nazi principle at this point.
What do you mean?
They hadn't made that decision yet. The plan was still to try and deport all of them.
Relocate them to some other place.
There were a few interesting locations chosen.
New York.
Well, I mean,
Hollywood.
If you want to hear a sad story that I encountered, there was a ship of, I believe it said 930 Jewish child refugees, and first it tried to come to New York, at which point it was denied entry, and then it tried to go to Canada, where it was also denied entry, and it was forced to return to Europe. It was called like the SS Friendship or some shit like that too.
Dude, I'm sorry. New York, the Statue of Liberty is like, no, nah. Too many kids, too many little freaking brats, all screaming and hollering on this freaking boat. You can hear them cross the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Halfway across the Atlantic, you can hear them. They did not want to be dealing with all those kids. I get it.
All loud and fucking constantly like crayon on the walls of the whole country. I don't think so.
SS Friendship. Free kid. Well, who took them? Was it the UK? I think the British took a lot of.
They took a lot, but
the Nazi children or the
all of them.
Holocaust children of the people, ones that escaped.
I mean, there were a few really interesting areas considered for the forced deportation. British Palestine was one of them, which of course is where the modern state of Israel is now. Mm-hmm. Other options included Siberia, but they never got control of Siberia. And Madagascar.
Right, French Madagascar.
Yep.
Now, when we say French Madagascar, I mean this is years before Philibert Tsiranana became prime minister.
Yeah, because
if you're listening and you're like a French Madagascar historian and you're like, well, I hope they mentioned the freaking prime minister wasn't involved.
Yeah, because really, there were no concrete plans drawn up for Madagascar until after France had already fallen to Germany. So at that point, it was really German Madagascar anyway. But this was off the table. They couldn't send anybody to Madagascar because the British naval blockade was so complete and effective. They weren't going to be able to get any shipping done. The Axis couldn't ship anything.
When you also said one of the locations suggested was Siberia.
Yeah.
Like Siberia, there's like nothing, right?
Yeah, it's a tundra. It's just a frozen wasteland as far as the eye can see.
It made me think of our island extravaganza episode where we talked about Nanzino Island.
Yeah.
And they just dumped him on an island and gave him just like flour, but like no way of baking bread. Just like, here's where you live now. There's no shelter. Like they make him jump in the water to get to the island. Like, fuck off the boat. And episode 1932.
Yeah, I can imagine their new homeland would have been a similar situation.
But
yeah, forced deportations generally don't. They're generally full of atrocities like that every time.
Freaking animals.
Now, there was also, under the Guevara Agreement between the Zionist Federation of Germany and, Nazi Reich economic officials, that until the beginning of World War II put an end to it, sent 60,000 Jews from Germany along with $100 million equivalent of to British Palestine. So there was, an agreement between German Jews who wanted to reestablish a German a Jewish homeland and Nazis. They were like, totally, go to British Palestine. We'll get this agreement going. They'll get a big money injection, and you're out of here.
The Germans paid the $100 million?
No, it was paid for with the Jewish people's property.
Okay.
Yeah. But and it's not like they're doing a good thing. Because, the buildings and the real estate that they leave behind is all directly goes to Nazi assets immediately. So, they're selfishly doing it economically. But, I mean, at this point, it shows that they hadn't determined on extermination yet. It's probably only in Hitler's mind. So, World War II kicks off. And this changes the game in a lot of ways. Germany invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939, and the Soviet Union, unwilling to allow Nazi Germany to, butt directly up against Russia, invaded 16 days later on the 17th from the east. And they divided the country in half. The Soviet Union took their half and, started Sovietizing it, building buildings and putting the Soviet style of administration in all of the cities, shit like that. And the
Poland's
eastern
what
half
the
of
fuck?
Poland.
Poland's dude, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Just take us.
Yeah, it became clear pretty early on, especially after they were fighting on two fronts. Basically, as soon as the Soviet Union invaded, I think it was the...
What did Poland's military do during all this? Just go.
They evacuated.
That way.
They evacuated. They just fled the country. The leadership they were just like, everybody get the hell out of here, and they just fled Poland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they had a government in exile, but even the leadership told the army, they were like, everybody, we're getting the fuck out of here, and they just left.
I have Polish grandparents. I had, and they must have came over then.
My grandmother was from Poland.
Mm-hmm.
She came over before World War II started, though.
Oh, yeah, that's probably the case too. With me. So friggin'
yeah, and in this territory, he gained control over a couple of more million Jewish people.
Hitler's like, fantastic. That's all I need. I'm up to my ears in these. Hitler's like, I'm trying to get rid of these. I'm trying to get rid of these freaking Jews. Here I am gaining 2 million more.
And Polish people who he also hated and really got fucked up by this. You'll see later on, Polish people got treated way better than Jewish people, but Polish people were not treated well.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole point of this military exercise was to fill the Nazi promise of Lebensraum, the living space. That was coming from the east, and it was supposed to provide more room for German people. So that's a big problem for not German people who are living there already, as you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, we're great, all this extra space for German people. And the Polish people are like, what about the Polish people? And he's like, well, the thing about that is,
you gotta move.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fucking, real bad.
Or, we could kill you. It's up to you.
It is the alternative option.
It's up to you. I kill you right here. In your home, if you like.
Yeah, I suppose that is the other option. Reinhard Heydrich, the Reich Security Office, which I guess is the NSA, I guess a rough equivalent. He ordered the whole leadership class of Poland to be killed. So as soon as the Nazis got their hand on anybody in the leadership class, they were to be executed immediately.
Oh, so they would probably just find them sporadically, not all like in one hideout.
Yeah, and just,
like there's 8 of them, get them.
Yeah, and just kill them. And the Jewish population was supposed to be deported from Poland, and many were. Many were like forcibly pushed into East Poland or elsewhere, or sent all over the place. But also already in 1939, we were seeing ghettos being established across all of Poland in the major cities that were near rail lines. Fucking, this is where shit is real gross, really, really bad.
Gets crowded.
You could say that. I mean, basically, here's what you would experience if you were Jewish and, say, living in Warsaw. Where you were living, you would be forcefully evicted from both your home and your business. You would be taken to, like, a small neighborhood in your city, and then walls would be built so that there was only one way in and one way out. And you were not even allowed to use that most of the time. You had to stay inside this small area indefinitely. I mean, and all the time, too, in this sort of cramped area, there's new people arriving all the time, some of whom may not even speak the same language as you. And they're just being crammed in there. And, I mean, when I say crammed, I hope it's no amount of exaggeration to say that the Warsaw Ghetto, which was the largest of these, had about 400,000 Jewish people living in an area of only 1.3 square miles. I mean, the conditions were brutal. I mean, in some cases, these people were forced to sleep 17 to 30 people to a room. It's basically you're crammed so tightly together that every single bit of floor space has somebody sleeping on it. Not like, maybe 3 or 4 of you share a room. It's like you're having trouble finding a place indoors to lay down and sleep.
You're probably laying on each other.
Basically, yeah. That shit is unhuman, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's already really fucked up. In one ghetto, 700 people were forced to move into an area and be confined there that was previously only occupied by 5 families.
Like if you imagine 5 dwellings, because you just said is the space to support 5 families.
Yeah.
So you think 5 family dwellings. I divided 700 people by 5. It's 140 people per dwelling.
Yes. Yeah, this shit is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, there were always extremely, extremely harsh restrictions on entering and leaving these ghettos. And like any Polish person who's caught helping a Jewish person would be immediately executed. Like instant death penalty, no trial, no nothing. Like if you give a fucking dollar to a Jewish person, you're done. They'll shoot you right in the head.
Probably death by German Luger.
Yeah. I mean, they were exceptionally brutal occupiers. And, that works for a while, and it works when you have a very superior force to the place you're occupying, but it doesn't work forever, man. It always engenders rebellion. People will always fucking kill you for that shit.
Mm-hmm.
They'll always fight it. A brutal occupation only works for a little while. I mean, the Slavic Poles, they didn't get very good treatment because they're only, one rung up on fucking Hitler's wacko racial hierarchy. I mean, to illustrate that, all you got to do is take a look at the way they were fed by, the German overlord. They were forced to pay for their own food imports. So they'd be like emptying their savings constantly to buy food to pay for food.
Yeah.
And what they were given for everything is taken from them. Like, I can't be clear enough about that. Literally everything is taken from every single one of these people. They have nothing. For all of that, they're given the equivalent, 253 calories a day. 253 calories. That's
a
it.
Jewish person.
Yes.
Wait, you were talking about how different races were treated differently.
Yes,
because
we can see it in that because the Slavic Poles,
they got more.
They got more.
Yeah.
But I mean, they weren't exactly getting fat off 669 calories per day.
Right.
Because a German was getting 2,600 calories a day.
I looked up how many calories a McDonald's large fry is.
Yeah, let's hear it.
510.
Yeah, so if you were a Polish person, you were getting a little bit more. You were getting that whole large fry and the fries in the bag. That's what you're getting if you're a Polish person.
In the container, you could eat the container.
Yeah.
Then it'd be 510.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
or 669 or whatever.
If you're a Jewish person, you get less than a large fry from McDonald's every day. Less calories than that.
Think about that when you're eating your next McDonald's large fry. Think about the Holocaust. And
yeah, and if McDonald's, if you want us to cut that out of the episode, you know where to send the check.
you think of McDonald's, think Holocaust.
I'm loving
Dinner in hell. Just kidding. So, if you imagine, like you said, there was 30 people laying on the floors over these rooms, and you got to imagine these people aren't bathing, right? I mean, there's going to be
there's probably, it can happen, but you're talking about 700 people in 5 dwellings, there's probably 7 bathtubs.
Yeah.
A bathtub for 100 people each every day. They're not bathing every day.
So people are getting sick, probably getting lice.
Yeah, there's consequences to those kind of conditions, and those are generally, infectious disease. Those are going to spread like fucking crazy. You have a room, people think you get sick in the winter because of the temperature, but the temperature has nothing to do with it. It's because everybody's spending all their time inside. There's the ventilation's bad. Every people crammed in spaces together is why people get sick more often in the winter. Yeah, so you talking about those kinds of cramped conditions, the disease is going to spread like fucking wildfire.
Freaking learning all kinds of shit on Dinner in Hell.
Yeah, people you're touching literally all the time, basically, other people, when you're sleeping and shit, fuck.
We don't touch. Our bed's big.
Yeah, the Dinner in Hell bed that we share.
My spouse. Me and my spouse. Me and my life mate. Yeah. We put 2 queens side by side.
Yeah, and it's also a bed and not the floor.
Right.
There was, they didn't have shit for medical supplies, too. It's not like the Nazis were eager to hand over medical supplies in the midst of, once World War II started.
Bactine. Spraying their, open wounds.
Yeah, the Nazis are going to want to hold on to all their medical supplies, and they're not going to kick them over to people that they don't even think are fucking people.
Right.
Yeah, so shit's really terrible in the ghettos is basically what I'm trying to get across here with this one.
Yeah.
Pogroms and persecutions were taken all over the place. But there were some people who, resisted a little bit. The Catholic Church in Poland was doing some pretty dope shit during this period of time. They were making forged birth certificates, or baptism certificates, rather.
Saying they're baptized, Catholic?
Yeah.
And so not Jewish?
Yes. And, baptism certificates for maybe your parents, too.
Nice.
And maybe your grandparents, even. Because in the Catholic Church, they can just put whatever fucking date they want and shit on it. They have all they're the authority,
Yeah.
Yeah, so until the Nazis got wise to it, they were fucking making forged baptism certificates. Because they didn't have birth certificates. But baptism certificates, you could say, if all 4 of my grandparents got baptized, obviously that means I'm not fucking Jewish.
Right.
Yeah. But, they got wise to it, and they stopped accepting baptism certificates after a while.
I had to look up the word pogroms.
Oh, yeah? Yeah. It's also sad. It's always sad when you learn the sad definition of a word.
Yeah, it's the execution of extermination of an entire race, such as the Jews.
Yeah.
I'm like, Jesus. Google?
Yeah, when it's like they have to invent a new bad word for it to describe it, you know something's real fucked up. So basically what this would boil down to is that anybody living outside of the ghettos had to carry papers proving that none of their grandparents was Jewish. That's how the baptism certificates worked, you know.
But if you were German, what did you do? Just wear no normal clothes? Do you think Nazis harassed Germans too? I'm like, where's your papers? Like, I'm German, motherfucker.
There wouldn't have been very many German civilians there. It would have just been the Wehrmacht, the SS, or the Nazi military.
Was when you brought up the word that meant like German land. What was it?
Lebensraum?
Yeah, I figured that Germans started to like move into Poland. Like, yeah, stretch out. Yes, my new house.
Not quite right.
I want 4 houses.
Yeah.
This is my land to spread out in.
I mean, I think some of that did occur, but not very much.
Yeah.
Because early on, the Blitzkrieg seemed unstoppable. I mean, they rolled over France like immediately. Their defenses weren't even remotely prepared for what was coming. But
doesn't France get a bad rap all across the military board? Don't they?
Yeah, specifically because of that. But it doesn't have anything to do with French martial prowess. I'll be the first one to say it here. I'm like, the French military historically is one of the greatest ever.
Really?
Yes. Up until World War II, France was up until World War I, I guess. France was the greatest land power in the world. I mean, in Europe.
Damn.
Basically, since the Roman Empire. That's how it always worked. That's why France and England used to be the big enemies, because France controlled. You couldn't do shit to France on the land. You couldn't do anything to them. They were so strong. I think about like Napoleon almost conquered the world. That's the French army.
Damn.
Why are they getting shit on? Like, the French army was fucking insanely strong, but nobody could have predicted what would happen with the light armored tanks. There's a whole bunch of military shit that's real boring that you can get way better from somebody who's not me. But yeah, like, you can't blame the French for that. The Nazis were rolling over everybody until there was huge adaptations. And yeah, you can't shit on the French for that. The French military history is long and real proud. Yeah. Well, if you didn't have those papers and you were walking around in, say, Warsaw outside of the ghetto, you could be thrown in there and you could have been one of the 76,000 Jews to die in the Warsaw ghetto before 1942.
Damn. That's not even in a camp.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not even in a camp yet. That's just in the ghetto. That's 76,000 people. Right? That's like, this is
the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, we've told you that most of the industrial murder is going to be left off until part 3, but there's lots of people already dying, before World War II is even over, before the final solution gets put into action. There's a lot of death. It's really, really bad. I mean, and like you said, these pogroms, these and other types of persecution were undertaken around sort of the new Nazi world as it expanded throughout World War II as well. There were pogroms in Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, yes, even Luxembourg, and Belgium.
I wasn't arguing. Did I look like I was arguing? Did I notion it?
I know some people are like, the Luxembourgians or Luxembourgites. I don't know. What do you call people from Luxembourg?
Luxers?
I know, but I know there's some of our Luxembourgy listeners out there are like, hey, like, Luxembourg wouldn't do that. Sorry, it happened.
Luxenheads?
Luxemboys?
The Luxenheads that are sitting at home listening about, because we hashtagged Luxembourg on the podcast notes. Details. Yeah. I don't know. Fucking.
The Netherlands, though. The Netherlands was, I guess, progressive for its day because they were absolutely not anti-Semitic. The first anti-Semitic reforms they tried to enact in the Netherlands after they took it were met with a large-scale strike and a protest. Now, if you'll remember, the Nazis hate, most of all the communists. The communists is, fucking historically associated with the labor movement. So the fact that they use a strike as a protest does not go unnoticed by the Nazis, and they crash down pretty fucking harshly on the Dutch people. I mean, yeah. In one case, a Dutch partisan named William Arandius, this guy is pretty awesome. He was a man who was living openly as a homosexual in the Netherlands before the invasion. I mean, I imagine that's pretty difficult anywhere in the world in the
Right.
1940s to be an openly gay man.
Right.
Yeah, I imagine that's still kind of tough living in the Netherlands. But things are about to get way worse under the Nazis because they fucking will kill you for that.
Yeah.
But Arandius was an artist, and he was sort of the head of a resistance group that was using violence to combat the Nazis
Yeah.
who were taking over the Netherlands. And one of the things that they were doing, because the people in the Netherlands weren't really anti-Semitic, they didn't want to cough up their neighbors. They wouldn't inform on them. They liked the Jewish people that were there. So they were constantly hiding them and covering for them, and nobody was snitching them out. I mean, I think we can say on Dinner and Hell that we have a pretty firm no snitching policy.
Yeah. I mean, they do end up with stitches most of the time.
Yeah. Yes, but this resistance group, like we said, they used violence against the Nazis. And what he did was bomb a Dutch public records office. Because what they were trying to do is compare, forged documents with real documents to see, where people lived and how many people should live at this house. Like, so they can tell if somebody's faking and isn't really a part of this family or something.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Thorough.
good old Billy Arandius, he bombed it. He blew the shit. He blew it fucking up.
All the records.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, unfortunately, somehow they were able to suss out who was responsible, and their resistance group was executed via firing squad shortly after. But he had some pretty powerful last words that I think lots of people in this country might do well to remember. And he said, "Let it be known that homosexuals are not cowards." Yeah, he was a fucking hero, man. At least in my eyes.
I was going to say, I think that's our first mention of a firing squad on our show. As an execution method.
Yeah,
We covered many execution methods. I don't think we've ever said firing squad.
Yeah, we'll have to get into this. I mean, I can't think we've done all the execution methods already.
Right. Oh, hell no.
Yeah, not even close. We got a bunch of them on deck.
I got some that I just made up that I want to just pitch.
Maybe try.
Yeah.
No, never. So, yeah, good old Bill. William Arandius. I call him a hero. The real image that I think everybody, including myself, has associated in their minds with the Holocaust is the concentration camps. Now, these were, purpose-built camps generally for, a few different things, but they all sort of had one commonality, and that was death. Lots of people died here. It was horrible.
The plan was not for them to die, though, right? But if they died,
yeah. What are you gonna do? We gotta get
sucks.
this. Yeah.
We didn't kill them; they just died. But they wanted to. There was like a holding place until they got rid of their ass, like to a different like Siberia,
Yeah.
French Madagascar, or if you're a Soviet POW, probably never leave.
Yeah. You weren't going anywhere.
You're just holding.
Yeah,
tank
some
for
of them
you.
were prison camps, some of them were labor camps, some of them were extermination camps, which will make up the bulk of episode 3, I'm thinking. But, lots of people died at all the different types of them. The people who were there, like you said, the Soviet POWs were among the most numerous after the European population of Jews that were still left. But as we mentioned in part one, less populous but definitely still present are the Romani people, ethnic Slavs, political prisoners, homosexuals, people with disabilities, Catholic clergy, and specifically Jehovah's Witnesses.
God damn it.
Now, I couldn't...
I get it. I would never say execute Jehovah's Witnesses, but I get it. I'm just kidding.
Yes, I mean, we thought there's a Kingdom Hall around here somewhere. They knock on the door every once in a while, but they're polite when I tell them to hit the bricks. I got no gripe with them. But I had to look it up because I was like, why the fuck specifically Jehovah's Witnesses are included in this?
Yeah, why?
And it's because since they won't have any other authority other than God, they wouldn't swear an oath of allegiance to Hitler. And they wouldn't join the army. They refused to serve in the army. So that's why the Jehovah's Witnesses specifically are persecuted. They wouldn't swear allegiance to Hitler.
He just did it for fun. He's like, you know what? Throw the freaking Jehovah's in there too.
Fuck them.
You know what? The neurodivergence. Yep.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's grab Jehovah's Witnesses. Throw them in there.
Yeah. Or there's a wheel of all to different Christian denominations, and they happen to wheel the dart landed.
Yeah. It's random.
In most camps, I guess we'll get into what life was like for the people who were living here. The internees were forced to wear identifying overalls. Now, what that means to me, I guess, is prison clothes, jumpsuits, black and white striped ones.
Yeah.
You may have seen pictures or documentary footage.
Three Stooges prison costume.
Basically, yeah, that's pretty much what it looks like. A lot less wacky sound effects, though, in my mental theater. Yeah.
There's a guy off side of the stage during Three Stooges that did all the sounds right there on the spot.
Yeah, Foley artist. That's what. Yeah, Foley effects. I've done Foley effects. They're fucking fun, dude. Yeah, so they're identified as an internee at the prison camp by their overalls, but there was further identification going on. There was a series of colored badges that would identify why the individual in question was interned at the camp. As you may have guessed, you'd get a red triangle for being a communist. You'd get a green triangle if you were a petty thief, and they picked you up off the streets because they didn't want you out there causing trouble.
Why would I have guessed it was a red triangle? Am I supposed to know that?
Red's the commie color.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is okay? Green triangles for common criminals. Why is it green?
I have no idea. No clue why it's green.
Okay.
Purple triangles were for Jehovah's Witnesses.
I know why
purple one.
I know what they're talking about.
Why?
Green.
Oh yeah, you're getting picked up, little bud.
Getting that green. Pink triangles for the homosexuals.
Yeah, a symbol which
Big surprise.
was reacquired or rehabilitated by homosexuals after the fact.
And what did the Jehovah's Witnesses have to wear?
They had a purple one. Yeah, so Jehovah's Witnesses had a purple one. A yellow triangle, or I think later on the yellow Star of David was for Jewish people. That's what they had to wear on their inmate overalls.
Of course.
Now, black triangles were for the asocials and the work shy. The asocial, I assume, is a term that includes the, like you said, neurodivergent. I think asocial encompasses that. Also, the quote-unquote work shy.
What does that mean?
I don't know, chronically unemployed people, I guess.
You always see the work shy people chilling with the green criminal.
Yeah.
Can I come by?
Yeah, maybe those two overlap. I don't know. If I was in there, I'd definitely have a black triangle.
That's not all, right? Because I remember there was a brown triangle.
Oh, yeah. There's a brown triangle too. I'm sorry. Always getting left out of this conversation.
Jeez.
The Romani. They had a
Man.
brown triangle. Yeah.
No respect, Romanis.
Now, like we said earlier, there were a variety of different type of camp that were established, and these were mostly in Poland. But in the first episode, Dachau, the first, that's in Germany. There's several in Germany, and they're everywhere, but most of these were in Poland. They were always established, like the ghettos near the railway lines. The early camps could have been anything from an improvised, sort of warehouse or storage cellar, anywhere they could lock. They just cram people in. Those are, the earliest concentration camps.
Like a barn?
Yeah.
A warehouse?
Yep. But these were springing up sometimes without even direct Nazi oversight. I mean, again, like we said, anti-Semitism in the world, especially Europe, is really fucking bad all around. It's not just the Nazis.
Mm.
So there were a lot of local populations that once they were under Nazi control were just more than willing to conduct these pogroms for themselves. There were hostage camps, and this is another feature of what living in a Nazi-occupied country was like. So they would take a certain portion of the local population and house them in one of these hostage camps. And the Germans always hated snipers. They were always afraid of snipers. It was like the big thing. So a German soldier goes missing, and they think they've got a sniper on their hands. And what they've told the local population is for every German soldier that goes missing, you better hope for their safety because we're going to kill 100 of our hostages. So a dumb German soldier might get drunk and fall off a cliff. 100 people from the hostage camp are getting hung the next morning.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the guy. When I said they had a brutal occupation, but this is what I mean by that.
Steps on a mine, blows up, 100 dead.
Well, I mean, then they'd know what happened to them. They wouldn't think somebody else killed them.
Find them everywhere. Scattered.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yep, that could do that. The most common, though, were the labor camps. In these types of concentration camps, prisoners would be worked for long hours on starvation rations, sometimes, to death. Don't let the fact that it's not called an extermination camp fool you into believing people didn't die there like crazy. Imagine yourself working a 16-hour day of hard-ass labor, like mining. Imagine mining for fucking 16 hours, and then you get to go home every day from that to a concentration camp where you're imprisoned, constantly humiliated, beaten, and abused, and you're doing all this on like 300 shitty calories of moldy bread every day with rags for clothes.
And you're crammed into wherever you sleep.
Yeah, it's probably fucking cold and shit, too. Like, this is a type of life that, I think most people would probably have a very difficult time even imagining. And it's levels of horrors that still shock me no matter how many times I read about this shit. Yeah, the next type of camp, POW camps, those existed to basically process soldiers. And they would, they'd capture soldiers who would surrender, and they'd get to POW camps before they'd get integrated into the forced labor force. But almost all of them always wound up in the labor camps. There was also something called a work education camp, where like the Polish intelligentsia were taken, and they were sort of reprogrammed into trying to think of themselves as like inhuman slaves who were like right to be abused by the Aryans.
That's crazy.
Yeah, nice work. Real horrifying. I mean, the main motivation for these camps initially was to fund the war machine. I mean, you need uniforms manufactured. You need bullets. You need bombs. You need guns. You need tank treads. You need bolts. You need raw materials. You need all that shit. And England's blockading the shit out of the sea, so you can't even really trade with your allies. So the Nazis, in order to keep their war machine rolling on, had to make all this shit for themselves. So before the extermination character, I mean, the economic factor was the main driving force of using slaves like this.
It reminds me of 2 Minutes to Midnight by Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
Oil the jaws of the war machine and feed it with our babies. Little Iron Maiden lyric.
What a great line. The motivation was economic then, but that wasn't going to last forever. The way they were operating was clearly unsustainable from the Nazi point of view. I mean, after the ghettos had burned through their savings, paying for the shitty food that they got, they couldn't maintain it with like charity, I guess. And at a conference in 1942 in the Berlin suburb of Wannsee, the final solution to the Jewish question was finally decided upon by party and SS leadership, which was, as you know, a large-scale intentional extermination of Jews in Europe. And this was formally decided upon at this conference, as well as formally deciding upon who's Jewish and who's not.
Wow. You're sitting at home crossing your fingers and thinking, you're just thinking of only the best outcome. You're like, no, we decided, we're going to go ahead and exterminate you.
Yeah.
We've all agreed.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously by their behavior and the design, they didn't care if they died. I mean, they literally just worked them to death. But this is where it actually turns formally and intentionally to genocide. I mean, the Jews that were to be exterminated were sent from all over Europe to the Polish extermination camps, mainly via train. Now, these are also very powerful images in my mind in terms of thinking about the Holocaust. And the conditions were absolutely horrifying. I mean, almost all the victims took the trip in cattle cars. It's like not seats.
Just standing.
Just standing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you think the size of a train car is pretty big, but is it 150 people or so in each big? No.
No.
That's an awful lot of fucking people to be in a train car. A train car that was ventilated only by a single small barred window.
Right now, there's a listener listening to our show in a Tokyo subway going, please,
There's
give me a
6,000
break.
people in this train.
I call that Monday.
Yeah, but, Tokyo subway trips, little bit shorter than what you'll hear about soon coming up.
Yeah, I'm not trying to compare Tokyo subway ride to work, the morning commute to the Holocaust train ride. But domo arigato to our listeners.
Yeah, thank you to our Japanese listeners. What up?
Mr. Roboto.
Yeah, now, like I said, these are long journeys. So, shorter than a subway ride, so there's got to be a bathroom, right? Again, the answer is no.
Cut a hole in the bottom of the train car.
That would have probably been better, but they would not want any damage to their train car to help Jewish people.
God damn it.
So oftentimes there was a bucket for a latrine, for 150 people, one bucket, small ventilated barred window. Maybe you can dump it out. Maybe you fucking can't. Who knows?
I do not want a window seat either way.
Yeah.
Window seats got like shit residue.
Yeah, fucking. So sometimes there was no bucket, which just left a quicklime coated floor of the, cattle car.
Woo! You still with us, people?
Yeah. So, I mean, lots of people fucking died on these trains before they even got anywhere near the camps. I mean, from the own remembrances of SS officer Kurt Gerstein's reckoning, he once witnessed the arrival of 45 train cars with 6,700 people, of whom approximately 1,800 were already dead when they opened the doors of the train cars.
Damn.
I mean, the trains, the thing about them is they also had the lowest transit priority on the Reich rail system,
Right.
meaning that if there was, say,
Supplies.
if there were supplies that needed the rail, they got priority over the Jewish people. Or, like, they need more bullets, like, in the Western Front. Like, fucking, they'd make the train full of Jewish human beings just sit still, locked in place, sometimes for days before even moving. Like, no brakes. The doors go locked. They get unlocked when they're at the concentration camp.
Wow.
And they'll just sit in a train station because fucking uniforms are going by.
Or a train full of like actual pigs in a cattle car.
Yes, they
To be
would
slaughtered,
they
to
would
be
have
eaten.
higher transit priority on the
Pigs
Nazi
are
rail
getting
system.
unloaded
Yeah.
before
Yes,
the Jews.
Absolutely. That was absolutely the case. And to absolutely inhuman treatment, worse than livestock.
It's like they're not going anywhere. Stick them over there.
I mean, and from Nazi territory, these trains had vastly different travel times. I mean, if you talk about the Greek island of Corfu, these people, the Jews that were taken from there, were locked in a train car for 18 days.
Wow.
Yeah, it takes 18 days to get to Warsaw to the camp from the island of Corfu.
Wow. That sucks.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and it seems like, how in the world could this possibly be happening? And maybe nobody knew about it. Like, people may not have known the full extent, but I mean, just like Kristallnacht, this was not a secret. I mean, even the Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto had like caught wind by the time 1942 had rolled around that deportation from the ghettos meant that you die. Like, they didn't think they were just going to a labor camp. They knew what was happening. So other people in the country must have known as well, because I'm sure the Jews would have been the last to be told about this.
Didn't the gate, like at Auschwitz, say like work will set you free or something?
Yeah, Arbeit macht frei. Work will set you free. How sick is that? To just like wring every fucking ounce of like production you can get from these slaves while you're working them to death is fucking sick. You know, but lots of people must have known. In the Warsaw Ghetto, though, once they knew this information, they decided to fight back. In the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, 20 to 30,000 Jews were able to hold the Nazis at bay for a month, basically. Which, I mean, they had nothing in the world. That is an incredible achievement.
Right. No, nothing.
They had nothing.
They got a couple weapons from guards.
Yeah,
maybe killed a few guards or something.
Yeah. I mean, eventually they took 13,000 casualties in the fighting, only inflicting 300 on the Germans. But that's 300 dead Nazis.
The poor Jewish are starving. They just start eating the guards immediately. Just eating the flesh off their freaking.
Fucking, I'd give it to them. I wouldn't give them any shit over it.
Yeah, I mean, you've only had like 300 calories per day. You're probably freaking ravenous.
Mm-hmm.
Eat that guard. No one's gonna judge you.
Yeah, another unfortunate consequence of this uprising, though, is that block by block, the Nazis burned the Warsaw Ghetto to the ground and built the Warsaw concentration camp complex over its ashes.
Fuckers.
Yeah, these are real fucking, like, real awful pieces of shit. In case it's not dead clear, like, we're strongly coming down on the anti-Nazi side of history. There was another pretty prominent revolt from this period of time, though, in the camp of Sobibor. You know, some prisoners here, they overheard the leadership of the camp discussing the imminent closure of Sobibor, which meant the liquidation, and for a non-euphemism of that, the execution of the remaining 600 prisoners. So they had a revolt, but not... they had a stealth revolt. Over the course of the day, prisoners left and right were murdering one by one the staff.
Hell yeah.
Fucking, I imagine like some Metal Gear Solid type shit.
Are you trying to end this episode on a positive note? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, I'm trying
Trying
to.
to big old bucket of gold at the end of this
This is how fucked up this
shit
is.
rainbow.
This story is like the positive thing that I can pull from this portion.
Is this revolt?
Yeah, I had to.
Yeah,
I tried to break it up with
definitely.
a little bit of a good story about good old Bill Arondius earlier, so I figured we'd close things out with Sobibor here. Now, over the course of the day, the prisoners killed the guards. Most of them, one by one, eventually making a break for it through a barbed wire fence that they'd busted open, and then sprinting across an open minefield to safety in the forest.
Yeah.
Now, even my silver lining has a gray cloud of all of its own, because if you remember, I said there were remaining 600 prisoners at Sobibor. 200 managed to escape to the forest in the revolt. The 2/3 of the prisoners died in that rebellion. But I guess it's better than 3/3, and that's the best you're going to get when you try to pull a happy moment out of the Holocaust.
Wasn't there a movie? I think it was called Defiance. It was like Daniel Craig, and like he had like Jews in the woods hiding.
That could have been about this. It's ringing a bell, but I haven't seen it.
Defiant or Defiance, I think. I had to look it up.
It's probably dope, then. Maybe I'll check it out. You let me know if it's good. Yeah, so that's it for part 2 of volume 2 of our Nazi series on the Holocaust. Holy shit. That's a heavy one. Right, Ron?
Heavy, yes.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
And,
almost as heavy as our band.
Boom. And I gotta say, it's not gonna get any lighter in part 3, because, yeah, this one is where the all of the bloodshed is.
And our Nazi series doesn't end there. There'll be other Nazi volumes. This is just volume 2.
Yeah, there's plenty of more fucked up shit that these assholes are responsible for.
We know a lot more than, yeah.
They kept meticulous records, so a lot of this shit that's going to come in part 3, a lot of the numbers are in their own words. They'll be in the own words of the Nazis. So a lot of people may make the claim that they're exaggerated or that it didn't happen. Spoiler alert, Holocaust is real. And the Germans didn't exaggerate, I don't think. I mean, if they were altering these documents, they would have been trying to hide it. So I take the numbers as real, and you should too. But that's what's coming up in part 3 of this series. Oh, that band is sounding good, aren't they?
Hell yeah.
Crowd looking good, loud as shit, like always. Hell yeah.
The rhythm section. Bumping. Crowd cheering.
Let us know what you're thinking about this series. The best way to do that is on Twitter, dinnerandhellpod. You can always email us, dinnerandhellpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, SoundCloud, YouTube. Please don't forget to rate and subscribe on motherfucking iTunes. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you to the audience. Thank the band. Good night.